Welcome to another episode of the CarryTrainer Higher Line podcast. Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Higher Line podcast. We've got our friend Zivan on today. You guys have seen him many times in the past, and I think today is a fitting discussion for Z's background and life experiences. Welcome, Instructor Zee.
Glad to be here. Thank you for having me again, Mick.
I was going to wear my Instructor Zee shirt. I just had hung it up after I washed it, and then I thought, I'm not going to put that on because he's going to have one on, and then you did. I did just wear it in another recording, though. It's a nice shirt.
Thank you.
What is the symbol? You've got a jack, right?
Yeah.
So it's like a playing card. What's that mean?
It's I was just playing off of the jack of all trades and the arrowhead that I use for the symbol. You know, I've used an arrowhead before. I like the historic meaning of it. It's used in a lot of military patches and logos, and it pays homage to the Native Americans that we learned a lot of our guerrilla warfare, unconventional warfare skills from. The field craft and the strategies and tactics that they used. We took that to take ownership of our country, to fight for our country and win against a bigger, more organized, more outfitted and equipped army, because we use the skills and tactics that we learned from Native Americans. So the Indian head, or the arrowhead, pays homage to that, and it kind of looks like a spade on a card, and then the jack of all trades is a jack, of course. So I was like, you know, a card would be cool. And it says capable citizens on it. And some people think it's a spade, but it's not.
And the concept is that you are teaching people, encouraging them to become a jack of all trades.
Yeah, I think that's what a capable citizen is, really. You know, it's not being good at shooting. It's not being good at public speaking necessarily. It's not being good at fixing cars necessarily. It's not being a good dad or husband or wife or mother. It's trying to be well-rounded. It's trying to be well-rounded for what life brings. And we know that life is everyday things, and we know that life can involve violence and chaos. Like there's no way around it, even though people try to pretend that that's something that you can policy away or law away or rule away. It's never going to go away. And not from a paranoid perspective, but from a realist perspective, bad things happen. People do bad things. So
Indeed.
We need to be ready for all those things, right? Whether it be fixing your tire so you can get from point A to point B in a pinch, mentoring your children, or protecting your children by any means necessary.
I dig that. You and I started talking about having this discussion today, and what I want to be careful about is not telling you to be careful. Just I want to make sure that we are not people. I don't want to think that we're using this tragedy in Texas that just happened, this horrific murder, to try to sell anything, or because there's tons of people in this space that are trying to sell products and training, like, see what just happened, hire me. And what I want to talk about is something that was your specialty. So you're a United States Green Beret, and you spent like a decade in, what was your unit called?
It was Alpha Company, 1st Battalion, 5th Special Forces Group, A15, which was one of the CIFs at the time. It's called a different acronym now, but it's Commanders in Extremis Force. Essentially, each Green Beret group has one company that is dedicated to hostage rescue and direct action focus. And that was the company for 5th Group at Fort Campbell, Kentucky.
Would I be correct in stating that at that unit, or rather in your in 5th Group, those guys, your group, the best, they're the best guys at that job.
Yeah. I mean, they train specifically for it. We have a selection process that's internal to the company that makes sure we pick out the best guys. They have to attend a school that makes them qualified for the job. So yeah, I mean, there's a long process to make sure that these guys are capable of doing what we need to do.
So the reason that we want to talk about this, we were commenting on all of the nonsensical noise online about what should have, could have, would have happened with the reaction to somebody being inside a school shooting. And you commented in a private group of guys, something to the effect of, it's a lot different engaging when there's somebody shooting back at you versus plinking on the flat range or training. And you said something a little deeper, and I'll let you talk about it. And I said, hey, why don't we do a podcast and talk about that? So your job for years, not so much chasing active shooters, right? You guys would have been trained to go catch terrorists and hunt them down, right? Am I correct?
Right. So whatever the target deck was in overseas or with our partner forces, or unilaterally, meaning us just working with Americans alone, we would go and find those that we were required to find and try to bring them to justice. And that was kind of like a saying on a shirt at one time, we can bring you to justice or bring justice to you. Some kind
that
of
was a saying on your shirt.
Yeah, I've seen shirts that we've had a part of our unit, and I mean in the military in general, I've seen that little tagline going around.
Or bring justice to you. I gotcha. So in the context of something like a shooting at a school or a grocery store or a public place, there's a bunch of real world experience of having to go into a place that maybe you have limited knowledge of, a building, someplace that's not your home, and hunt a human being that you know to be armed or presumed to be, and kill or capture them. Yes,
for sure.
Okay, so I'll let you talk a little bit, because it seems like everybody on the internet, and I'm not an expert in this at all. You just released a bunch of stuff through your work with Carl over at Tactical Rifleman, which was a bunch of cool kind of soundbite, couple minute blocks of instruction on like single man room clearing, moving through a building, CQB style stuff. So there's some of that out there for people to see. But why is it a problem? Why is it not so easy? Why can't we just John Wick our way through a building? And
I know when we were talking in our private group, we were talking about, I mean, there was all this stuff going on. I think there's still investigations going on. I don't know if everything's come out clear from the Uvalde, Texas situation, right? And God bless those families and the whole situation. We never want to see that. It breaks my heart. And I don't know who's wrong or right. And when there's a tragedy, I'll say that a lot of emotions come along with that, especially people close to the tragedy. And if I was a parent and that happened, I would be looking to point the finger at somebody too. I'm just, you think it feels better to freaking find a scapegoat, essentially somebody that could have done something or should have done something or would have done something, but should is shit. And once their emotions die down and they see that they still got to deal with the loss that they have, no matter who was the problem or not the problem, right? So God bless them. But we were talking about it in our private group, and we were talking about going forward in the face of fire, going forward in fear when you know something is right there and it's scary. And I mentioned something, paraphrasing what I said. I don't remember exactly, but I was saying, it's funny how it feels like it's almost an intangible thing that a person has that helps them to move forward. And, of course, training and conditioning helps with this. But to me, it feels like there's also something in a person too. Maybe, I don't know how we could quantify it, or if there was scientific data. I actually talked to Rob Wilson a little bit about it, because he does, he does his big research and does his writings and series on pretty complex subjects and looks into it. And I was like, man, you gotta look into this, right? And he sent me a couple things already, some data points out there that's available for people, police facing fear situations and whatnot. And I don't know exactly what would quantify what is needed for a person to go forward alone when they're faced with someone trying to kill them, right? Like, it's when they're, and not just of the idea of someone trying to kill you, but like if bullets were hitting next to you or they were firing in your direction, that's a pretty clear, concise experience of something trying to definitely kill you, deliberately kill you, right? That's a hard thing, man. I don't know what a person needs to go forward in that. I mean, I think it would take a combination of things, which we can talk about here. So I was talking about what does it take? It definitely takes conditioning. It takes a few things here and there that I know help with it. And then there's some things that's like in your heart and your will that maybe come through time, a process of living a certain way. Maybe it builds, maybe it's from nature or nurture. I don't know. But one thing I can say about, my old unit, like one thing we did, if we're talking about what's tangible, what is quantifiable, that really helped me a lot in those situations overseas and in the mindset that I have now carrying forward, that I continue to try to cultivate in myself and others, is we used to do CQB scenarios, right? And it was force on force. And for those that may not know, you get simunitions or training rounds, marking rounds they hurt. I mean, it's just like airsoft or paintball or anything like that. I mean, it's not pleasant to get hit with that stuff. And we would wear our gear and we would go in houses and train consistently all the time, many, many runs. I can't even count, how many times that we would spend days on end just doing repeated runs, repetitions of going through houses against someone, right? To try to hone our skills. And one thing particularly, even besides all the other things that we're training on, like obviously your marksmanship with your gun, your movement, your organization within the room, your tactics of how you take down a room and how you move forward and clear dead space and do the work in the room, the dead, the room, the living, move on to the next problem or whatever, breaching and all that stuff was always in play as we progressed and got more complex in our repetitions. But there was always this rule, unless we're playing some kind of medical scenario, right, where we want to, involve a medical scenario in the training, like, a casualty or whatever. The rule was, if you get shot by the enemy, which it was guaranteed that you probably were, is like mostly everybody got shot, because you always end up, even if it's just a 1 and 2 man in a stack of a team going into a room, y'all switch roles as you move through rooms. Wherever there's work needed, you get in where you need to. You get in where you fit in. I might be number 5 man, 4 man, then I end up being 1 man. Just depends on what's needed. So everybody gets some time getting shot by the opposing force or the role players that we have in the house. But the rule was, you don't die when you get shot. You never die. You go forward. You still go to your corner. You go to your assignment in the room. You continue to work. Even when it hits you in the fingers and you're bleeding, even if it slips up and hits you in the face, we don't usually aim at each other's face, because, kind of, it doesn't help with training, right? You're just pissing people off at that point, and it's dangerous, right? So we try to shoot at the body, or everybody gets hit in the hands because your gun's in front of you and you got your hands up, right? So if they're shooting center mass, they hit you in the hands, they hit you in the legs, they do all kinds of stuff, and it hurts, even if you got some safety equipment on, or your plates and all that stuff. But the mindset was, you never stop. You never stop. You never stop. Go, go, go. And because we're in the microcosm of tactics, which is just a CQB situation, meaning there's a threshold or a doorway and you go into this little objective, you treat rooms in CQB as like one room at a time. You take this room down and then you move to the next. Obviously, you're paying attention to doorways and windows and stuff that might open you up to other threats, but one room at a time is essentially the process. So you go in there and everything comes to a head right in that doorway. Like every time you get to a doorway, it's like facing that fear again. I'm taking the bunker, like in World War II or something. We're taking out a bunker. So it's just repeated repetitions of taking the bunker down under fire. Because every doorway, especially when you're playing with a lot of course, most live real world situations doesn't involve like bad guys in every single room. You're not going through freaking like a movie and, you know, there's 100 bad guys in every room trying to kill you. But of course, we concentrate the opposing force a lot more when we're training, because we figure you dodge a wrench, you can dodge a ball. We want it hard training, easy fighting, hopefully, right? That's the whole concept. So we always trying to fight in training, do more than we would have to do in real life. And so every doorway was a fight, go in, get shot, still process the information, still continue to look and to go to where you're supposed to be in the room, be disciplined and go where you're supposed to be. No matter what, if it hits you in the neck, hits you in the fingers and you're hurting, finish, fight through. And that was constant power phrases that I would use in my head: fight through. And you hear, you know, people that are trainers like us, and sometimes we get overly emotional and passionate with our training, and we just start throwing out maxim phrases that are like very vague. Fight through it. And people's like, sometimes you got to slow down and be like, what do you mean? How do I fight through this? Right. But in the context that I'm talking about, we knew what that meant. Continue to do your job, even though you get hiccups, even though there's obstacles, even though you run into this guy. Do your job. Now, is my background in training with CQB the only way to condition yourself in tactical training against an opposing force? Is that the only way to do that? No, but I think it was very beneficial because, like I said, we repeated that process in one house, maybe a training house where we're going in against an opposition. Maybe there's 5, 6, 7 rooms. So all those doorways had to be entered. So we just got a concentration of that moment. Push through this obstacle. All right, next one, we're done with this one, moving on, push through. Next one, push through. So looking back and thinking about all these things and thinking about the conditioning of moving forward in the face of fire, I think that really helped, right? Because it was just so prominent in our training because of what CQB forced us to do. And it hurt to get shot with those things, but you keep going.
Did you, when you went to go do it for real, ever say to yourself, like, this isn't how this was trained, or, wow, that's exactly like how we trained it? Was there any of those kinds of moments?
Oh, for sure, man. For sure. Like, and I've said this before, talking about guys that have done heroic things in combat, like, plus my own experience, you know, with, specifically, I was telling somebody in one of my classes, we get passionate, we tell stories. And I was talking about, if we could go back and be a fly on the wall or the drone, you know, because of technology, if we could watch every Medal of Honor recipient, his action that took place when he was doing the things that helped him earn that Medal of Honor, I bet it was ugly. I bet it was just violent and ugly and not graceful and beautiful like a John Wick scene at all. I bet it wasn't. I bet, because anything I've ever seen in combat and in the heat of the moment was never, it never played out in an ideal manner, right? And I know people heard the things like, you know, plans always change, so on and so forth. And when you get in combat, nothing goes right. And no matter how much you plan, shit hits the fan. Well, I mean, to some degree, yeah. But it's not really that the plan doesn't work. It's that people are faced with fear and adrenaline and all the shit and chaos that goes on with war. And that makes things change, right? You just like, you go back to your almost your caveman instinct. What have you built into your system? and that's what works. And a lot of times that doesn't look graceful. That just looks clunky and chunky and violent. And people just, the will to win is what sets you apart in those moments. And so, yeah, in combat, like we would do things smooth, in training, we would do things smooth and it would look great. And we'd be like clicking on all cylinders, even against in the face of an opposing force that had marking rounds or simunition rounds, training rounds, because eventually, I mean, in our mind, we knew that you can't kill us, right? I mean, there's no tricking us. We know that, even though it hurts. But once you got that switch in your head that you flip, like, hey, I'm not dying, I'm going in, I get hit, big deal. I'm continuing to do what I have to do no matter what. And I move forward every time. I would see how that transferred into combat. And then combat, it would be a little different because it was almost as if all that ability to throttle our intensity down left us, right? It's like when you really think that somebody you potentially might die, it's so hard to throttle your intensity down. It's like, go forward. Like if you've got the ability to switch and go forward and be aggressive in that moment, and you can overcome that fear in that moment, that is good to have, but there's more to it than that. You're still scared. You're still clenching and you're like, oh, I remember this face right here. Like even going in against training in a training environment, going against an opposing force that you know is going to shoot you, you come in and you'd be like, ugh, because you knew you're bracing for the hit. You know you're going to get hurt.
Like
right?
jumping in ice water or something.
Yeah, it's like, damn it, I just got to keep moving. If you could get my face, it probably look like this all the time, right? So imagine if you think that somebody is really trying to hurt you, right? You're coming in and you're like, ugh. It's like straight animal. It's like you have to have it. Like it's I have to be this animal because I can't go forward otherwise, because I know what's at risk here. There's no telling me different. I know. I can't trick myself. So you go in and you go hard. And I think that's why, off subject a little bit, you see these soldiers that have experience, and it's not popular on the internet. And I've thought about this a lot, because we think of efficiency of performance, like as far as marksmanship and, staying upright, not turtling when you shoot, and all this different stuff that we talk about in the gun community on the internet.
Mm-hmm.
Like, yeah, there's things that are way efficient, but there's some things that I know that are required to fight it that I just can't get out of me. I'm like, my mind goes to fighting. So it makes you a brace for fighting, right? Trying to be calm will make you efficient. Yes, I truly believe that. But I think there's a place in the middle somewhere, right? So that clench, that feeling of I'm about to be in a fight, it changes you, right? It changes you when you go in. So back to your question, to wrap it up, I'm sorry for being long-winded there. Going into combat, yet a lot of things didn't go exactly like training, and mostly it was because we went so super hard and intense when we knew that there was a lot on the line. It was hard to control. It was hard to control not going hard, busting in the rooms and getting my hands on people quickly, because I knew that, man, the faster I can get in there and get control of that room, that situation, the safer I am, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You hear this, you spent months, years training. I'm sure you trained the entire time, but trained before you went and did the job. And then we get the public looking, and I don't want to comment on what just happened because we don't have facts, but you look at the general public, and there's people saying those cops didn't go in, they should be put in prison. I'm seeing that now. It's like, oh, wait a second. Like, one, I don't know the facts. I don't even want to comment on that scenario, but start just listening to you talking about the amount of training, and you think about the average street cop, those that have done active shooter training, it's like 4 or 8 hours possibly, and it's pretty low level stuff. And you see these guys, we see these guys, it's not a dig, holding a carbine or something. Some of them don't even know which end the bullet comes out of, and the public doesn't like hearing that. But if I'm being a little bit of a smart ass, but not that much, is it nuts to expect like an average person without that high level of training to be capable in that situation?
I think you're asking a lot of someone if they're not trained to a high level. I mean, because we talked about at the beginning, what quantifies being able to go forward in the face of fire, especially in such a small proximity situation. You know, talking about like going into a building where we're enclosed, where it's not like going in forward when you're getting behind a tree when a guy's 200 yards away popping shots at you. That's a little different, right? It feels like you feel the proximity difference. It's like you feel a little safer, but I know it's right around the corner. Think about, you know, a horror movie, something's about to happen. You know, that scary scene is about to pop out, man. You brace for it. It's the same thing in real life, right? I know something's right around the corner. It's right there, right? I don't know. It would take a miraculous event, an adrenaline fueled miraculous event for people that have little to no training to push forward in those moments. It would be one of those situations like you hear about the mothers lifting the car off the child. It would be like one of those, you know, it's miraculous. It's an anomaly. Without being able to quantify the heart and the will that goes along with pushing through, maybe that's the traits of the person, where they come from, what they've been through. I'm sure there's some of that entangled in that ability to go forward, but I know that the conditioning that I had through training to freaking push forward no matter what, and from day one in the military to my last day in the military, there was always a theme, especially in the combat arms part of the military. The theme was never quit, push forward, do whatever it takes to watch your buddy's back. Never, the mission must be accomplished. Failure is not an option. I mean, all those bravado type statements and concepts that are, for lack of a better way of putting it, brainwashed into you. It's for a reason, because people that come up with this stuff years back from our forefathers knew that it's hard to fight in the face of death. You know, it's hard. Like, you have to freaking be conditioned. And, you know, you don't want to be to the point of, some people might not like that and think, oh, well, I knew it. The military's brainwashing people. We're not brainwashing you to be psychopaths and out here killing people and just look at death as no big deal. I think the better, more mature soldier that you become, the more you respect death and the honor of death, and what the people that you've seen die, whether on either side, you respect what they had to do to be in that position, right? I care more about life at this point, you know, than I feel like it made me appreciate life more. But I think the conditioning, just that training, the levels of training definitely play a part in that, man. Like, if you're not very sure, and we talked about this before, Mick, what someone has taught me, Doc Seth, a friend of mine who was a performance coach,
that's Doc Hun on Instagram, right?
Yep. On Instagram, Doc Hun's.
DOCHUHN.
Yeah. He's done some classes with me. He's been a huge part of helping me think about the things that help me become better, and a lot of other, you know, high level soldiers. But anyway, he talks about, in a nutshell, what confidence is, and that comes with competence and preparation. And the competence being, you know how to execute whatever task. I know how this machine works. I know how that gun works. I know how to get it into action. And then the preparation part, which is, can you do it? Are you physically fit to do it? Do you have the mental capacity to do it? Can you control your emotions and able to do it? Right? All those things that come along with the preparation, like, those come together. And if you don't have the true confidence in that area, as brave as you might be, right, you're going to be thinking twice about going into something where you're going to have to bring those skills that you need to have in that moment to bear. If I think I don't have those skills, then I'm going to be slow about getting into that. You know what I mean? Like, I want to go in there, but I'm not sure I'm capable of handling that situation.
Might be willing to jump out of an airplane with a parachute on, but I should learn how to use it first.
Right. And that's a good example right there, because I can deliberately apply that concept that we just talked about to when I had to jump out of airplanes. And the more I trained, the more that I learned to trust the equipment and trust the lessons that they taught me over and over and over again, because that's a high risk situation, man. The less fear I had. right? It's still scary either way, but I embraced it more when I knew that, hey, trust this. I know this equipment has this tensile strength. I know it can support me. I know that if I do this thing, I've got this option. I know I got this contingency plan. I know, because it's been beat into my head. It made it more bearable to deal in that moment, you know?
That brings up a couple training questions I would ask. One, all those force on force scenarios, you and I've done some force on force with students before, and it seems like that kind of stuff can quickly kind of devolve into paintball matches. You remember that one time you had to yell at those guys? How did you guys keep the training as realistic as possible, or maybe realistic is the wrong word? How did you craft it to get the best use out of it and not turn it into a stupid paintball circle jerk?
Well, I mean, starting off with the preparation, I mean, you always have an idea of where you want this particular evolution or repetition to go, right? Like, all right, you know, what are we focused on? This time I want y'all to focus on deliberate clearing. I want y'all to get to the back of the house as fast as possible, or I want to work on this or that. We have specific goals and things that we want to execute during the training. And then there's, controllers or external controllers, like whether it be our leadership or the other team, somebody that would kind of manage the role players and set up the lane to meet those goals, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they would give the role players certain roles to accomplish, like, hey, I want you to be at this door and be at this corner, shoot, and then run away from them, to draw them into a hallway, to cause chaos, to force them to come into something, and we would start slow. Obviously, you start with more simple problems, and then you start getting more complex and complex as the more you train, right? Maybe over a course of days or throughout that day.
So you crafted the evolutions to extract whatever you were trying to get.
Of course. I mean, and I think, obviously having a deliberate set of goals and sub goals, or task and subtask, is always going to be better for training, because we know exactly what we're working for, right? And so you're looking for that. So you craft the evolution and the role players to get that out of you.
So that makes sense. So let me ask another training question. So since Columbine, we in the United States have analyzed this problem of active murderers, people actively engaged in murdering, and it's been like well known for decades that you got to go now. There's still some people out there teaching law enforcement to arrive, wait for help, go in as like 2-3 person teams, and there's still some people teaching that. I think the Israelis have done a very good job over the years because of the constant terrorist threat in their country of kind of being like always ready. What would you, if somebody said, okay, Z, you're in charge, you're going to train all the cops in the country, what would you do? How would you do that? How would you handle that? I know it's a pretty broad question, but like, what would that look like? Of course, everybody can't go become a elite super soldier. So what are the key things that matter in these situations?
Well, of course, they have to be confident in their skills. So, I mean, what do we have for the cop? All right. First off, to be confident in your skills, you have to have the competency in that preparation. We said that. So the competency would be, hey, what tools do you have? Are you good at using them for the intended purpose?
So you're talking just like the ability to get the gun up, get it out, put hits on target, keep the gun loaded, not shoot innocent people, all that kind of stuff.
Right. So that stuff is very, flat range oriented. We're just working on the marksmanship and the manipulation, and it should be automatic. We build a system, right? And me and you've talked about this in excess about systems, and we do it when we train, right? You build a system, because I don't have time to make up things. I don't have the bandwidth, the mental capacity to make up things on the fly, especially in the case that we're talking about here, right in the face of fear, right? Got to have a system. So I focus on that. And then the preparation part, like obviously you have to, and I know this is polarizing discussion across the nation with cops and their size and ability and whatever. You got to be fit. And I think Rob Wilson, that matter of fact, at S12 that we just did, he mentioned this. He said fitness, he had a good description. It was not exact, it's his definition. He said fitness is basically a gauge of how you a very simple gauge of how you can handle stress. So you're already teaching yourself to handle stress if you're requiring yourself to do things to remain fit on a consistent basis, right? So at the very bare minimum level, I can handle that much stress, and your body can handle that much stress. So fitness would be a key, right?
Okay.
Because that's confidence. And you could say, well, people that are this or that or have this weakness or are not, strong or can't run, they still can provide value. Well, it's not about that. I mean, it's about they have one less thing to creep up on their confidence and tell them that, hey, maybe you shouldn't do this because you're not ready. I don't need any extra whispers in my ear telling me I'm not ready when I need to go forward, right? Because that all I need is we'll take the easy way out. You give me a way out in the face of fear, where especially in a life threat moment, I'll take that way out. I don't need one more thing telling me that just take the easy way out. You're not cut out for this. Let somebody stronger come. You're just a regular guy that can't do shit. Well, we don't need regular guys that can't do shit if we're going to put them in the place to be a stopgap between those that do harm to our children or other innocents. And they have to be in that gap. So fitness, that's a confidence thing. It's not just I want you to be buff and strong. It's your confidence, because you know what you're capable of and you know your limitations. You can try to lie to yourself, but And then the preparation. I mean, two things I think about when, especially with limited time training people. And I used to train with people at the security company, train cops and train soldiers alike. And we talk about
just a side note for people listening. You're not just coming to this from the perspective of a retired Green Beret soldier. You also are involved in a private security company, right? You have created training curriculums that have become post-certified in the state of Tennessee. So people that don't know what that means, basically, he put together a training program that the Licensing and Standard Board for the state of Tennessee says is acceptable to be trained to cops and accepted as continuing education, et cetera. Correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Just so we're on the same page. This isn't, you're not just some like douchebag soldier saying this is the way I'd do it. Like I've been with you before at a major hospital system. You train all their staff there, their security people. They're armed there, aren't they? Memory serves.
Yeah, they're armed. And
okay.
Which is a lot of hospitals don't want their security guards armed, and they force them to say, if you're armed, you're going to be doing this training, which is good on them, right?
I was there when you were with them. You were doing some control stuff, not shooting stuff. But anyway, I just want to make sure people understand as they're listening, like, oh, easy for this guy to say. But you are working with the people in this capacity on a regular basis.
Right. Yeah. I don't assume to know everything about all tactics and what everybody's job might require. I don't. I know principles, and then we have to dig in for the details for that particular job or requirement. But I was saying in preparation, I always told those guys, like, you have to be capable of the worst case scenario, and you have to be able to do the most likely scenario. So worst case scenarios, like, you can't just say, well, the most likely scenario is this, this, and this is what always happens. So that's what we train for. All right. Well, I would argue once you have a baseline of what the most likely scenario is and you're trained there, you're just maintaining. You don't need to delve into that a lot. So you need to go back to worst case scenario a lot, because that's the things that are going to sneak up on you because you're not doing them a lot. Right. And they're the most high risk worst case scenarios are. So you should focus more on worst case scenario. And it's not about having a militant mindset and these things that people argue, like our cops shouldn't look so military looking and all this. Like, whatever it takes to defend our people and help serve and protect our people is what they need to do. And if it looks harsh to you, like, I don't know what to tell you, man. I mean, you just got to get over it. Like, you got to be able to meet force with force that equals or surpasses, right, to win.
And the best tools and equipment that's available.
Right. And that's going to help preserve life. I mean, you're not going to have quality guys doing the job if you don't give them the stuff to keep them alive.
Hey
right?
guys, we got better shit out there, but people don't like how it looks. So we're going to give you this old crap from the 80s.
Yeah.
That just seems so stupid.
This leather basket weave, because that's nice looking. That's nice.
All right. So you've got core competency with the tools, physical, a baseline level of physical fitness. What's that look like? What's a baseline level of physical fitness? This always becomes a hard thing. And I don't mind talking about this because from a we the people standpoint, I had a talk with our friend Chris, who's part of a tactical unit down in the Phoenix area. I think he told me today that he's been on over 3,000 raids on properties with their tactical team. 3,000 where they breached and had to go in to find somebody over the last 25 years. That's kind of a lot. And he had some interesting statistics on that. Actually, he said out of all of those, only like 5 times were the doors barricaded, where people had like things to barricade the doors, where it wasn't just the lock. Just a quick side note, but like you guy like that versus some guy in Anytown, USA, people have this different concept of like what's allowed, what's not allowed for like fitness, what to force people to some standard. Like what's a standard? What would that look like to you?
That's a tough question and a good question. I think there's plenty of different standards out there, and I think that you don't have to be super buff and look the part, right? I remember Green Berets that I've served with that they didn't fit what the culture deemed as being fit, but they could do their job well and they were strong. Like they didn't look like muscular and they weren't doing all the stuff that a lot of guys did, but they could run and they could freaking carry their weight and they did what they had to do. So I don't think it requires a ton of muscle or a muscle bound looking person. And being in the military, we had a different idea. Of course, you had your baseline for staying in the military. And obviously, every big organization, they're trying to man shifts. They're trying to man positions. So
let me rephrase this question. If you got to say so tomorrow, President Zee, which doesn't work, the president doesn't get to do this. But if President Zee got to say, okay, from now on, every policeman has to meet this standard of physical fitness, like what are some things you would do? Run a mile in 9 minutes with their gear on? I'm just making some stuff up, but like, what are some things that you think somebody in that position should be capable of doing?
I think try not
to piss off customers.
I think they should be able to sprint. Maybe do like a pacer test, like my kid does at school. There's a pacer test with a beep, and he gets faster and faster, and you got to build up speed and be able to sustain an anaerobic type circuit with resistance for, I don't know, 10 to 15 minutes consistently. And, wherever the weight, who knows what the weight would be, it would deviate. It would depend, and just sustain that. More anaerobic than aerobic. I mean, aerobic's important. And then the big thing is I would have my officers, but the people under me, I would say, this is going to be a consistent thing. Every single day, this is happening, whether you like it or not. We're staying consistent. I would have it. One that was for maybe advanced or younger cops that they had to do something this much every day. And then guys that are a little older like myself, like are maybe in your 40s, yeah, I know I do less, but I do it more often now. Instead of like going super hard, balls to the wall, every so often, I try to just do a lot, right? Just maintain consistency. So I would have some kind of baseline standard, and it would revolve around anaerobic activity and with resistance and just keeping your heart rate up and ebbing and flowing and continuing to push through. Maybe a little aerobic portion or a standard like a mile might be good. But my big thing would be instilling consistency. Like, hey, these are the guys that passed this test. This is your initial baseline, but now this consistency has to be We have to hold you accountable for this, and you have to do it regularly. And it comes down to leaders. Like, of course, there's policies. People can throw out policies and rules and all kinds of stuff, ad nauseum, and that don't mean shit's going to change. People still got to implement these things. People still got to be held accountable. Leaders, guys like that are in charge, have to come in and motivate these guys and not turn it into something that they dread every day. You have to determine the culture of the workplace and environment that you're in. It's partly motivating people. It's not just holding people to the standard or the policy. So, I mean, there's a human factor there always.
The reason I
consistency
thought of my conversation with Chris was what we were talking about was, in ultimately these kinds of discussions, the last 2 years, the population's been saying F the police, defund the police. We need police that are better at mental health issues or being counselors or therapists, etc. Now people want cops that do what you do. I need a guy that'll storm the building and, charge the beach, so to speak. So the comment that we had and that Chris brought up was, we as a society need to figure out, what do we want our policemen to do, our police people to do? Do we want them to be mental health experts? Do we want them to be EMTs, as some communities want them to be? What do we expect from them? And it's silly, because nobody would expect, kind of like your jack of all trades. We want these folks to be able to do everything and do it well and don't mess up. And then
don't bother me with it. Don't get in my way if I'm doing something where police bother me and disagree with me. It's ridiculous, and it's what it's come down to is just people want knee-jerk reactions. Politicians don't help, because they basically take whatever sensationalized emotional thing that is going on that's popular, and they twist it and start talking about the policies they're going to make, which basically says, hey, look, I'm the guy with the power with the answers, when it's a farce. It's just like, you can come in and make any policies you want. You're not doing shit. Like, they're just trying to pander to those people that are going to be casting votes, right? And I know that's an age-old tale that people talk about too much, really, but that's what it is. And people just need to live in reality. Like, obviously, I'm going to tell you what you want to hear if I'm really working hard to try to get you to agree with me and what I do, right? I mean, I say obviously, but I don't agree with that tactic. I just think that's par for the course, and what is accepted nowadays is politically. So they want all these things, and I think you got to live in reality and know that people are people. You're not going to get everything you want. And I think the best solution for that would be for people to be capable of themselves, not because I want to be an anarchist and just say authority and all the rules and regulations we have in place, not because I want to that I dislike the police or I'm against them, not because I'm looking to fight the government in any chance I get. Yeah, I mean, those are things that may or may not have, I don't know. I just think you should be capable for the sake of being capable, because of you and yours. So if I've concentrated more on focusing on what I'm capable of doing and what me and my circle are capable of doing, and I see the work that it takes to be capable, to be confident, that competence and preparation, if I see that work and put it in myself, I'm going to be a lot less likely to judge these other guys and girls that are doing this job out there. I'm going to have a better perspective on things. And also, I'm going to have some skills, hopefully, where I can protect myself and be ready for some of these things, right?
Let's talk about the skills a little bit to people listening, be it a regular citizen or a law enforcement officer. Not everybody has the luxury, including many agencies, don't have the luxury of training some of these things. Where do they start? How does somebody, when called upon to deal with such a thing? Of course, this is a very complicated problem, but what are some of the principles and things that that they have to go out and cultivate in themselves.
So we already talked about a little bit with the fitness. You got to be in shape. And even if you don't want to do it for yourself, think about those people that you need to back up. Right. A lot of my motivation in my life has come from external motivation of doing it for others. Even if I didn't care enough about myself to do it, I felt like it was more of a duty perspective, right? Like I have to do it for them, you know? And if that, I don't like to say much, but it holds true a lot of times, fake it till you make it. If I didn't have, you know, an organic motivation to do something, I started looking for other ways to motivate myself because I had to accomplish the mission, which was ingrained in us, right? Whatever it takes. Fitness, and then hand-to-hand stuff, being able to handle yourself, or at least relatively handle yourself in contact proximity with someone, meaning we can put our hands on each other, we can hit each other and strike each other with our hands, and we have the ability to control one another potentially with our bodies.
Do you have any skills in that area?
Oh, I'm a black belt in jiu-jitsu, and I was an MMA fighter, and, you know, several years of various training and different martial arts, striking and grappling alike, right? And I continue to do so. And what I found in that is much like that conditioning I talked about in my old job in the military, where we had to continuously go in that door. You had to always go in that door and fight through the pain and the fear that was coming when you entered that door repeatedly. I feel like getting on the mats and fighting through the physical portion and the mental portion of someone trying to hold you down and give you active resistance over and over again. I feel like that concentrates in that area where does each scenario, the way we grapple and the way we execute that training, does it always look exactly like it will on the street or in a situation that somebody's job might require? No, it doesn't. But I'm continuously exposing myself to an environment that's very applicable to that. Right. So the confidence comes. I'm not too worried about getting smothered in my face. I know I can move a little bit. I'm not too worried about being held down when I'm out of breath because I'm not freaking out. I know it's okay. I know I'm not dying there. And you can just build on that. Right. So there's a confidence that comes from that, not to mention the conditioning and the physical ability. Right. And then obviously, whether you're a cop, a soldier, or whoever, cops and soldiers inherently have to deal with guns. But even a civilian, like, I don't look at it as the gun being my ultimate God at the altar of the gun. Ask me, I don't give a about guns. They don't mean shit to me except the tool that I need them for. That's it, right? And I said this before. I know people might get mad at me. I don't worship guns. I just know that I need something that can equal or trump what you can use against me. I need that. Why? Well, we could talk philosophy and the shit of the world forever and be like, man, I wish we didn't need these things. I wish people didn't do these things. I wish people didn't take guns and do these things. Well, shit is shit. Like we said already, people do have guns. Whatever rules and policies you make, they will still have guns as long as guns are available in this world, unless somebody can magically make them all disappear, like Thanos in the Marvel universe or some shit. Right. So if it was all swords, just like knights, like medieval times, everybody, if you didn't have a sword, you're slipping. Somebody is going to trump you and be able to take advantage of you because they had a tool that could force you to give up things or do what you might not want to do. And I would have to have a sword too, so I can match
more
that.
Of a spear guy.
Yeah, spear would be great too because now I got more range than you. All right. But maybe I'll throw swords. You know, you need a shield now, so you need a shield. But essentially, the physical fitness, that exposure to the grappling realm and learning, eventually becoming more confident in that area, which helps you make better decisions with your lethal weapons like guns. Right. And then obviously the gun, if that's what I have to trump those that might do harm to me and mine or other innocents, I got to have that. And I'm responsible. If I do have that, I'm responsible for that. I'm responsible for the skills that I have with that. I'm responsible if I don't know what the I'm doing with that and I cause more problems, right? I make the problem more complex because I don't know how to deal with the tools that I have, right? It's like driving. You can have a license, but there's definitely different levels to driving. You can have a license. Does that mean you're ready for everything that you're going to encounter on the road? I don't think it does, right? It just kind of gets you in the door, but you're still responsible. As a parent, I'm take my kids and we do extra things because I know somebody's going to swerve into your lane. You're going to hydroplane. You're going to hit a big puddle and not expect it sometimes, right? You're going to do things like that. And you're responsible for you in the car. Like it doesn't just come magically. So those three big things right there are key, and it's going to help the individual become more confident, which then going back to tying into what we're talking about before, going into the face of danger, knowing that danger is around the corner and I still got to go forward. I need everything I can to have the courage needed to go in that. And a lot of that courage comes from what the work you put in prior to. Fighters talk about this like in the UFC, and at least the more mentally adept ones that have worked hard on the mental aspects of fighting, they understand that the process, the training, earning the win every day prior to the fight is what makes you in that good mental space entering into that performance or that one culminating event, right? Because you're not lying to yourself. I know if I skip training often, I know if I put in the work consistently.
Mm-hmm.
So if I put in the work consistently, I come to the arena and I tell myself, hey, I deserve to win because I put in the work. If I come in thinking that, I hope I get lucky and I don't really deserve this because I didn't do shit, I'm just hoping that something, I roll the dice and it turns out my way, right? That's not a lot of confidence, right? So as soon as things go sideways, who's going to wilt faster,
Mm-hmm.
Like you're earning the right to win. I earn the right to win because I focus on these things and I put in the work, and I've earned the right to win. I've earned the ability to have confidence in the face of fear because I put in the work, right? I put in the work. And if you didn't earn it, that whisper is going to be there and be like, don't go, don't do it. You know what? Whoever's over there and whatever your duty is, because you're not capable of doing this. You don't need that extra whisper. I don't need any motivation to not go forward because it'll be there.
That's
It's
good
easy
stuff. How do people find you to set up training? Because you'll come and do training. You'll train PDs. You'll train groups. How do people find you to set up such a thing?
InstructorZee.com, Instructor Zee. You can holler at me. You know me, Mick. I keep it pretty simple, and I've even downgraded my schedule to do less. I'm more interested in quality, and I know
Long
there's
walks
plenty
on
of
the
training.
beach, bearskin rugs,
Yes,
red wine,
right. Plinking from the thing. We just shoot from the bearskin rug and do stuff like that. But yeah, Mick, as far as going forward, and just so people know that might be coming in this later, or not know the context that we started with initially, or they're jumping around the podcast. We initially started talking about this in a private group because of the recent Robb Elementary. I think it's Robb, ROBB, right, in Uvalde, Texas, and that stuff going on. And I don't know all the details of the situation. I know there's people saying cops didn't go in. I know there's people saying that they did what they could do at that time. I think let's point the finger at who went in there and did those horrific things. Like there's a guy that made a choice, a young man, and he went in there and he did those things. Like he could have found 1,000 different ways to kill children and got away with it, no matter who was there, who wasn't there, who could have did this or who could have did that. People do that every day. Right now, somebody's dying around the world because of tragedy, a tragic situation, right? Stop focusing on that. Feel it. Yeah, feel it. Be sad about those things. But stop trying to point the finger at all these problems. There's no solution to evil besides you being ready for it and being capable yourself. Like evil doesn't stop. Bad things don't stop. I don't give a what modern evolved society you have. It doesn't stop. And that's not a cynical view. That's a realistic view. I mean, look at history. When does it stop? Like, stop fooling yourself. And it's not going to. Like, just because you pretend that you're so far away from the nature of things, the natural order of things in life, primordial being, right? You're so far away from that because we're advanced and we have all these technologies. We don't get away from the bad things that happen. And I say it all the time. And I'm not trying to sound like I got a lot of bravado and I'm some caveman that only thinks about violence because that's what I happen to like or what I happen to be involved in my training. I say it because I see it as being true. Violence is what backs civil discussion and civil agreement, right? I mean, we see it at a global level, right? Why do countries not fight each other? Because they have the threat of violence. They have the threat of nuclear power. China, Russia, us, while we're tiptoeing around and doing bullshit here, Cold War type tactics and passive aggressive shit is because we don't straight up want to fight because we know the cost of that, right? But the threat of violence and the capability of having violence is what keeps things civil, right? And that's sad to say that, like, but that's nature, man. Come on, me and you shake hands and we agree to something. We're agreeing. There's an agreement there. If we're friends and we discuss things, it doesn't have to lead to violence. We just, all right, we shake hands. Back in the old days, I think about, the medieval days when everybody was trying to take advantage of everybody, maybe on the road to the castle. And they got a sword and they're going to come out like, hey, I got my sword ready. Like, I don't know who you are and what you're about. And if you're trying to take mine, and people were doing a lot worse back then. And maybe they were a lot more hungry than we are now. They didn't have so many things at their disposal like we do. So you really had to be on guard. Like, hey, are we chilling? We agreed on something? But remember, I still retain the right to be violent and defend myself no matter what. I don't take your word on anything. We can agree to things, but there's the backing of violence. If we disagree too much or we can't come to an agreeable solution, like who's going to force their way? Who's going to force their agenda? Right? And that's just the way things are. That's just the way things are, sadly enough.
And knowing that's why we train.
Exactly, man. I don't know why people, I mean, I know why. It's the age-old human behavior of we seek the path of least resistance. We talk about this all the time. Like humans, we're animals. So if we can cut the corner and cut through the yard versus going around the outskirt of the grass, we will do that.
If raccoons would rather dig in your garbage than have to go hunt in the woods.
For sure. The lion is going to take the lame gazelle, the baby gazelle. He's not going to fight the biggest of the herd ever.
Yeah.
Right. And humans are the same way, whether we choose to acknowledge it or not. And it's easier to pretend that bad things can't happen to you, or they won't happen to you, or you're playing the odds. And that probably won't happen. Keep playing that. I mean, things happen. Things happen.
Probably won't. Hope it won't. Not a good course of action.
Exactly. And I get it though. I mean, we're anxious. We get nervous. We feel anxiety and sadness because we have to think about that stuff. But that's also conditioning. Practice facing those hard discussions, those hard realities that are life. If you practice that you're already beginning to condition yourself to be better at this stuff. Because the adversity don't go away. It don't go away. So stop avoiding it with all your power. Stop avoiding it. Feed yourself a little bit of it. Dip your toes in the water. And then eventually you'll get used to the temperature and get all the way in, right? All the way to your ball sack. And you'll be able to take it eventually.
Yeah. On that note, I appreciate you coming out now that we're got our ball sack in the water. Yeah, appreciate you taking the time. I had a lot of fun with you last week. We trained our asses up. We had 12, 14-hour days, and then 3 or 4 of the days we ended up on the mats till midnight, 1 in the morning.
Yeah, sweating, cramping.
Back up at 5 a.m. That was a lot of work. Made me feel good. Next S12's in October. People can come out and train with you, learn some of these things from you directly.
Yeah, and I plan on. Before that, I'll be up there with you.
July, as you would say, July. Isn't that how you say it? July?
Julie. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, July.
Yeah, July. You're coming up here and you are going to do a class. What is the specifics of that class?
It's a hands-on weapon-based environment, basically grappling and clinching, retaining your gun, trying to take someone else's gun, retaining the gun while it's in your holster or while it's out of the holster.
Mm-hmm.
Different techniques and tactics that I've learned checking out other people and testing that against my own good sense and experience. But the big thing is we're going to film some, and I want to film some stuff with you. We'll talk about more of this. Maybe we'll do some force on force. I'm going to bring some guns. I got some Sims rounds. We could do that, get that on video, maybe even illustrate some of these things you and I are talking about.
I'd love to.
Instructor
Zee on Instagram.
Yeah.
Instructor Zee on Grindr. Instructor Zee on YouTube. Yes.
Yeah. Instructor Zee on the Facebook.
Oh yeah, I forgot you're on Facebook too. And you're on TikTok.
Yeah, TikTok. I throw a few things out there. I might dance a little.
Yeah, you do. Motto is capable citizens. Yeah.
Yeah. Capable citizens.
And I guess your mantra is I will not stay down.
That's one of them. That's a good one too, I think.
Well, what's your motto then?
I don't know. I just say a bunch of stuff.
That's the one that's I just say a bunch of stuff.
My motto is be your own cavalry.
I love spicy Cheetos.
Be your own cavalry. I think I coined that. And no, I'm just kidding.
Get into your ball sack. There's a Z phrase. No, but
dip all the way into the ball sack hits.
Yeah, this is not at the candy factory with the chocolate either. No, where I'm going with this, I'm trying to be serious. You've arrived at these conclusions because of the totality of your life and experience and existence, etc., which is, what we're talking about here. So as you guys, if you've enjoyed the podcast, go check him out. His life's work now, besides being a dad and a husband, is making capable citizens that will develop a ethos of their own and not stay down.
That's right. You're going to get knocked down, but you're not going to stay down.
Unless you choose to, and then you're a bitch.
Yeah.
Or you just got hit real hard. I appreciate you coming on, man.
Yeah, man. I appreciate you having me. Again, God bless those families, and we hate these tragedies. And instead of pointing the finger, this is what I'm going to do, Mick. I'm going to shut my mouth about criticizing others, and I'm going to look inward and see what I can do to be better and protect mine. That's what I'm going to do.
I think that's a great way of looking at it. And just for clarification, anybody listening, the purpose of today's conversation wasn't to point fingers in that situation, because as we said, we don't have the facts. We're talking more about in generalizations here, because there's so much misinformation going around about just in general. And of course, everybody's an expert at everything. COVID told us that. I'm a biologist and a geneticist, and I got 8 PhDs in tomfoolery.
Right.
No idea.
If you're on the internet, you're pretty much an expert.
On that note, this is Mickey with CarryTrainer.com. Z on the other end of the line there with Z's Grinder Emporium. Be well. Don't be dickheads. Come see us at the next S12. It'll be a good time.
Please.
Visit our website, CarryTrainer.com, for information about classes held throughout the U.S., CarryTrainer apparel, and upcoming projects. You can also email us at training@CarryTrainer.com for information about setting up your own private course or speaking engagement. Training@CarryTrainer.com or CarryTrainer.com. What are you doing in the podcast room, Steve?
I'm writing a national anthem. It's going to be at folk festivals for Gunfighter Gun Oil.
Oh.
Let me tell you about Gunfighter Gun Hire. Made in the USA. Gunfighter Gun Oil. 100% synthetic. It's gonna last you, baby. Yeah. Gunfighter Gun Oil is the best gunfighter gunfighter gunfighter.
Gonna get my lighter out. I don't have
It wasn't even Bob Dylan. It was like a love story.